Hello, this is Elizabeth Clare Brewington with Discover Brightside, and Dr. Kim is not new to the show. So we are so honored to have her here, and she will be with us for health and wellness. So pay attention. She has some very important information to share. So over to you, Dr. Kim.
Well, hello. Today, I want to focus on one of what I call the four roadblocks to healing. So, in the work I do, which is physics and biocellular frequency for health and wellness applications, the four nasty contenders are mold and parasites and Lyme disease and heavy metals. And the reason I call them the four bad guys is because they're often overlooked in standard medical testing. Not always, we're getting a little better. But today I want to talk about Lyme disease, and in particular because it is part of my own wellness journey. And as Samantha just mentioned, it's often talked about as though it's simple. You know, you get bitten, you take medicine, and you move on. But it really is not, as she said, that simple. And for some of us, it becomes a very long, confusing journey where you have symptoms, you have uncertainty, and more than anything, you're feeling unheard. So that was part of my story. Would you like me to tell you my story? Okay.
Yes, we want to know about your diagnostic and what services you offer with people who are suffering from Lyme.
Okay. Well, what I do is I offer biocellular assessments. And what that does is it actually focuses on what's going on with you at the root cellular level. It does not involve blood. And really, what you get out of the services is you get an understanding of what is going on in your body. And in particular, with relationship to Lyme. There are many lab tests available to check for Lyme disease. However, there's a very good clinical podcast that I listened to about a month ago from some experts out on the West Coast. And the thing that really stuck with me that I want to bring to you is that those tests are antiquated. So, what that means is that there are hundreds of different types of infections, from babesia to ehrlichiosis to on and on, co-infections that can come about from having been bitten by a tick or a mosquito. It all goes under the umbrella of Lyme. But the problem with that lab test is that you often get a false negative. The reason being is there are only a few tests on the market today that will give you up-to-date positive readings because they've actually been formulated with what we now know, which is a lot more than what we knew back in 1990 when I was almost debilitated with Lyme. So my point is, there are people running around who may have a lot of symptoms and may have been told that they are negative when in fact they are not. And that begs the question, well, how do I find out? Well, you can find out by seeking out the lab tests that are most up to date, hoping that your physician has it or you can somehow get it. Or you can come and do a biocellular wellness assessment where I can take a look at many, many types of co-infections and bacteria that may be going on inside of your body. So what I do is I help people uncover the hidden stress patterns in their body and basically gain clarity on what is affecting their wellness. And then what we do from there is identify what the next personalized steps are for them to receive support. And that could be as simple as going for a lab test. It could be as simple as visiting your dentist. It could be many different things that don't have to do with Lyme. But the point is that it is a very personal wellness protocol based on your cellular assessment, which is very unique because we really are like snowflakes. There are no two human beings alike on the earth. And so your cellular assessment will be uniquely yours. Nobody else will have it.
Wow, that is so amazing. What was fascinating when I talked to you, Dr. Kim, earlier was that how many people are misdiagnosed and how many people are not even aware of Lyme disease. And are there any things that you can do to avoid it, or it just happens and there's nothing you can do about it? You get bit and that's it. Yeah.
I wish I knew. I know, that there are protocols, and it is check yourself after you've been out, avoid tall grasses. Always look for a bite or a tick or a rash, things like that. Put your clothing in the dryer if you've been walking around or gardening. But I can tell you that if the tiny little tick, as again, as Samantha said, that's no bigger than pepper, is in your head, it's very hard for you to find that. So, on some level, it is difficult to avoid it. Now, the human body is fascinating, and you can fight many infections. It's not to say that every person who gets a bite is going to get very sick, but then there is the other side of that, that some people do get very sick, and those are the ones that need the most attention and the most support to get through it.
There you have it. Now you know. Any questions for Dr. Kim? Roberta, you look like you have a question, but you're not sure. Turn your
Yeah, yeah.
microphone.
No, 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 I'm thinking
Yes.
because I've been lucky enough never to have it. My dad, may he rest in peace, years ago had a different kind of Lyme where he was much sicker, and I think it was like spinal Lyme or something, and then was in the hospital probably for about 10 days, but then it never, ever, ever came back. He never had another symptom. It was, but then I have a friend that he got it, and it took probably 5 years. But then I was reading the story of Ross Douthat from the New York Times, and his was like 11 years of misdiagnosis. And so it's just amazing to me how there's three separate spectrums of this, where so like, how do you know? Is it a way to prevent getting one versus the other? Or, are there certain parts of the country even that have different types of Lyme?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there different types of Lyme, Dr. Kim?
Oh, yeah, yeah. On the bioscan that I work with from International Health Technologies, the database I work with is over 800,000 entries. And in there, if I were to run a Lyme profile, my goodness, you're going to come up with a minimum of 50 different names. Some of them that, as I said before, the more familiar ones are Ehrlichiosis, Babesia, regular Lyme, but then there are ones that are mixed, I'm sorry, as Roberta just said, with other ticks like Rocky Mountain spotted fever. The list goes on and on. And it is important to know what you have. I had a client come around Christmas time with her son who had been bitten while he was at college in Florida, and he was a athlete, like track. And he became so debilitated that he could not complete, and he was all set to go to college, in this coming fall. So he really did not want to spend the senior year debilitated. It was a matter of determining exactly which type of infection and then his treatment, not only the rebalancing and the biocompatibility that I would do, but also his regular practitioners, what they offered, because it was very particular. And the more we know and the longer we study this, the more specific we can get. But that's if you are looking to be specific. If you want the blanket, oh, you either have it or you don't, you're okay. That's one thing. And what I'm finding is that often that may have been the case. You won't really say it's always a misdiagnosis, as it's possibly not a deep enough dive into your symptoms to see, well, gee, did we miss it? Is that what's really going on? So Lyme is a big masquerader. It manifests in a lot of different ways and a lot of different people, which makes it even more of a big bad guy.
So Samantha had a question. Samantha, yeah.
I'm so sorry. I woke up with a cold this morning and I needed a sip of water so I don't sound so hoarse, but
Oh, you're most
I'm so
welcome to
sorry.
sip water.
I hope you can edit that out. I'm sorry. I'm hoarse, but I just wanted to say to Dr. Kim, like you're hitting it right, like the nail on the head on the coffin or whatever the saying is. I never get them right. My friends always make fun of me. I never get those right, but you're hitting it right on the head. Like you just heard about four bad guys. I have them all. I think that it's so common to have this misconception of it's just Lyme. And even myself, I'm guilty of saying when I talk about things, Lyme, and I've been working on changing the way I speak about it because it takes a long time to say Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, Rocky Mountain Spotted Fever, all these different things. But then there's the complications. There's mast cell activation syndrome. There's POTS. There's all of these complications. And for me, I'm a great example. It took 2.5 years of medical gaslighting, 35 plus misdiagnoses, and it was crazy. I live in the place where it's the most common. I missed all 4 years of high school. I was in a wheelchair for 4 years, told one day I'm dying, told the next in a different office that's 5 minutes away from the dying office that I'm faking it. And, what Dr. Kim was, talking about with these antiquated tests, false negatives, false positives, that was my story. I tested positive, but if you don't have every single line positive and there's one that you're missing, they tell you like you're crazy. Why are you? I don't understand how you can be crazy and how bacteria can be in your system if you don't have it. And, that was my story. And my body shut down. The test caught it when they were those specialized, expensive tests, but the typical Quest LabCorp test caught it to a degree, but not to a degree that an infectious disease doctor was willing to treat it. And the system didn't catch it. And, that's the gap I work in. Dr. Kim seems to help, you know, people find what's hidden in their body. I'm the person who comes in after when you finally have answers or you're looking for answers and you're still searching for, what do I do about this? You just talked about somebody who was about to go to college or in college, and I'm a big believer in, you know, the treatment has to match the person and their lifestyle and their beliefs. Because a kid going to college is going to have a really hard time taking like 50 supplements and all of the diet changes, whether it's necessary or not, they're going to have a hard time sustaining that. So I'm a big believer in, making sure that they get organized, they prep for appointments and coordinate between all the specialists because there's usually like definitely not one. There's more than five usually that are going. And I'm not a doctor, but I do the non-medical side, the strategy, the structure, the hand holding. And that's why I started my business and my Lyme coach because I wish I had this when I was going through the peak of my illness. I wanted someone to tell me it's going to be okay. I've been through that herbal treatment. I've been through that antibiotic, anti-malaria protocol. I've done the high dose vitamin C. I've done XYZ. And I can tell you how you're going to feel in the non-medical way that a doctor's not going to sit and tell you the if, ands, or buts. And that person didn't exist, so I became her.
Mhm. Well,
So,
I understand what you're saying. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
No, no, no. Go ahead, Dr. Kim.
I was going to say, I understand what you're saying perfectly, Samantha, because my journey with Lyme went back to 1989, and I used to live in New Jersey. I went to Long Beach Island and was bitten on the beach. Got sick in
yeah,
August with what seemed like the flu, didn't know what it was, and just
yeah.
went on living, but remembered the big rash. Now, years later, as a mother of three children, I started losing functionality, and my doctor said the same thing. She's going to end up in a wheelchair. Now, when they finally diagnosed it back then, if you can imagine, they brought a nurse to my house, stuck a PICC line in me, and loaded me up with IV clafurin, which to this day, I'm restoring my gut because that was a very aggressive
I
protocol.
understand.
That's what happened. So here's what I hear and what you're saying. My own daughter, because she was a horseback riding girl and we lived on a
Yeah.
farm, she got it. But her experience was so much different than mine. She had contracted, I think it was Babesia, and it presented much differently than what I was dealing with. So while she was going through her own Lyme journey, we didn't even connect that she
God.
would have the same thing I did. And so, what you're doing, offering those kinds of supports, I mean, if she had known that there was a group out there led by someone like yourself that she could have checked into, it would have made the journey so much easier because there would have been an understanding of what you go through. But now, after having come through the other side of this journey myself, what I like to do is help people head it off at the pass. If you didn't think you had it, but you have symptoms, you've been told you have arthritis, you've been told
Yeah.
you have this, you've been told you have that. However, at the very root, maybe your cause was the the Lyme. And
I
that is
totally agree.
that is the origination of the rest of your symptoms. Because you're right, five specialists will come in if you can do that, afford that, and treat what hit you down the pike. But if
100%.
if I can get on it with the biocellular assessment to say, hey, you can do an herbal, you can do an antibiotic, but your cells are resonating right now with this, why don't we go into a protocol? And I don't prescribe because I am a health and wellness coach. My PhD is in counseling. So I totally relate, Samantha, to what you're talking about support. And the fact that many times when people come down with something or they don't know what they're dealing with, they really want more than 10 minutes in an office. They
100%.
really would like to talk about it. And that's the other side of what I like to offer my clients is the opportunity to be heard, to share privately what is going on, so that we can help you fix it.
I agree, like 1,000%, and all of the above, 1,000%. And that's why, like, I'm very different than a lot of people in the field who, I don't like how, a 45-minute call is timed. I'm never watching the clock with my clients. I always have a half-hour buffer. I can be on the phone with you for 15 minutes or 3 hours because you don't know. And I offer something called laser calls at a certain package where you can't predict a bad day. You can't predict when you're going to wake up feeling sicker or when a family member is going to gaslight you or tell you like just do X, Y, and Z, and you're gonna feel like you're going crazy. And it's crazy making when you see so many specialists. And I totally agree when I see people, again, I'm not a doctor, but when I see people who have all these diagnoses of arthritis, lupus, all these random things that connect to things that are so specific to tick-borne illness, like your daughter with babesia, she may have had, air hunger where she can never quite catch a breath. Or she may have had the night sweats, which is like, going through, it's like feeling like you're going through menopause the way you're sweating through your sheets. I've had babesia, you sweat through your sheets and you have to change your sheets every night. It's torture, no matter how cold and how, much the AC is blasting or fans you have, you're sweating. And
Yeah.
there's so many specific things. And I love that what you do is I feel like you're like a matchmaker for treatments. So you cut out that time of you know, the trial and error, because that's really what we're left to, because there's no cure for Lyme. There's a lot of treatments, and that's part of the problem, is there's no one size fits all, like a lot of other diseases are.
Right. Well, that's why I like to call it the medical merry-go-round because you do
Totally, I love
get
that.
on it, and unfortunately, you'd like to get off of it, and you're just so thankful when you hit upon the right thing and it works for you. And that's what I like to do is,
But it's
um,
like throwing darts. We shouldn't have to throw darts.
yeah, yeah. It's like swinging a baseball, and you're not sure you're going to hit or miss.
Yeah,
Right, right,
totally.
right.
That's so true. So, thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for that
You're
beautiful
welcome.
presentation. And if anyone who's watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, write us a comment and we'll make sure that your question is answered. So if you write us a question, we will get it to Dr. Kim and we will answer it for you. And she'll be back on May 20th and 21st. We're doing a 2-day series on health and wellness that will be available on demand all through the year. So all these videos will be available on discoverbrightside.com. And if you subscribe, you'll get it in your inbox as well. So thank you for watching Discover Brightside, the video podcast. Does anyone have any more questions before I close out the session? All right.
One, I don't know if
Yes,
it's
go ahead.
controversial.
Go ahead. No.
Only because when I was talking about that Ross Douthat book, he mentioned that he said, years ago they had talked about it and then it was forgotten about, but that it was possibly a lab leak from Plum Island. Have you heard of that? And do you think about that? Because it's pretty sad that how many people, millions of people have been affected if that was a true. And he said, I was like, oh my God, did he just say that out loud?
Have you read the book Plum Island?
I did not, but I
Okay. I
watched
would,
this interview with him
yes,
for a long time.
I would highly recommend you read it because there is quite a bit of evidence in that book that points to the fact that there was research going on and that Lyme was developed as a bioweapon and that it was put onto deer in Plum Island, and then some of the deer escaped, if that's believable, swam over to Lyme, Connecticut. And I do think that Tucker Carlson, a couple months back, had interviewed the fellow who's related with Bergdorfi, the originators. And he did concur that that's a very plausible explanation so that that book actually may be true. My daughter read it. I'm aware of it. I didn't read the whole thing, but given what we know now about SARS and COVID and what we're working through, it's very plausible to me that that is what happened.
Oh dear. Our poor dears and spreading something like this. But you're
Well, because
right.
I'm on Long Island, so it's like, it was always sort of like in the back, and people
Yeah.
talked about it. And, I have
Yeah.
a friend who doesn't live far from Lyme also. And so then when I heard him mention it, in the interview I was watching, I was just like, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Can you imagine if Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer got Lyme?
You
There'd
know?
be no Christmas presents. Oh my goodness. Now we've heard everything. So you're watching Discover Brightside, and if you know about Lyme or you happen to be an unfortunate victim of it, write us a comment, tell us what's going on. If you have a question, I think this was a very successful panel, so we will bring it back into our health and wellness. I'll have to work with Dr. Kim on the programming because there's so many topics to cover, and we definitely will cover it again with some more experts in the field. And stay tuned because Samantha's going to give you some advice and some support with her presentation, and I'll make sure the links are available. So thank you for watching.